It looks like it's going. Good. Well, hi Monica, how are you today?
I'm doing okay.
Okay, well I'm glad you're back. I really enjoyed our time together last week, and tell me just a little bit today. You said, okay, tell me if we were to put that on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being really not good and 10 being great, tell me where you'd be.
I guess I'd be like a 7.
A 7?
Yeah.
And would that be your feelings, if you were to describe them in words? Would it be happy, sad, angry, mad?
Confused.
Confused. Okay. Well, I want to get right back to that in just a second, okay?
Is that a feeling, confused?
Confused? Confused is a feeling.
Okay.
Yes, it is. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that. There's just a couple things before we get started today. I just want to talk to you about 2 things. The idea of what we're working on together and the process that you're going through. And what we're doing is we're working in the model of cognitive behavior therapy. And the idea is that cognitive, meaning things that we're thinking about, behavior, obviously, things that we do. And then there's the third thing that doesn't really get mentioned in there, but it's feelings. And the idea is that when we think about things, we also have feelings about those situations. And sometimes that can lead to behaviors, but it's a very 3-way triangle between those thoughts, behaviors, and feelings. And sometimes our feelings will influence our behaviors and our thoughts, and sometimes our behaviors can influence our thoughts and feelings. And one of the things that we're going to do as we work through this together in your situation is that we're going to see the connection between your thoughts, behaviors, and feelings, and then talk about ways and have you identify some ways that you might make change your thinking into a positive way, which can lead to more positive feelings and positive behaviors.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
And then the other thing I want to talk to you about is the idea of confidentiality. Have you heard that word before?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so in our meeting time, what confidentiality means is that all of the things that we discuss in here are between you and me. I may take notes, which are for my reference and for my use, but really for the most part, everything that we talk about stays in this room, but there are a few exceptions. It may be that at certain times I have to share some of the topics that we discuss with my supervisor. There could be other situations where in some particular situation I might have to share what we're talking about in general terms with your parents. But most importantly, if I was worried about you in a situation where you might be coming to some harm, or you might be thinking about harming somebody else, or if you knew that somebody else was being hurt, then I would have to talk about what we're talking about, and I couldn't keep that confidential anymore. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so now I want to get back to when we talked at the very beginning that you're feeling a little bit confused. And I'd like you to kind of put that in context of the homework that you were going to work on this week.
Mm-hmm. So I had to go and see my algebra teacher
Mm-hmm.
and talk to my algebra teacher about my grade,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm getting a bad grade, and my dad is really mad at me and yells at me because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And all my other grades are really good, except I just don't get algebra.
Okay, you just don't get it.
I don't get it. And
Okay.
so when I went to talk to my teacher, that really helped, because I felt like nervous about talking to
Mhm.
my teacher.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about when you feel nervous. Tell me what else is going on. What are the things that you're maybe thinking about when you're nervous?
That they're gonna judge me,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm dumb,
Mm-hmm.
and my heart beats really fast,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel sweaty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when we talked a little bit before about the idea of the connection between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
can you see the connection in that situation between those 3 things? Could you explain that for me?
So I'm thinking that I don't want to be judged, and then I have a feeling of anxiousness, and then I don't go see my teacher.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Good. And tell me how you felt. So I know you were nervous going to see your teacher, but tell me a little bit more about how you felt after going to see the teacher.
Like on a scale?
Tell me what was going on inside. So I know you were nervous, but
Yeah.
so you went and talked to your teacher. But tell me how your feelings progressed during that time period with the teacher.
I was always nervous talking to him,
Mm-hmm.
but when I was done with it, I felt better.
Okay, and you felt better how?
I wasn't so nervous.
Okay, and then what about your? You talked about you don't want to be judged, and you're worried about maybe being judged for your ability with math. Tell me how you felt about your ability with math after you met with your teacher.
I still feel like I don't get it, but at least I can talk to him about it.
Okay.
And that makes it a little easier.
Okay. And so in that situation, if you were to be in that situation again, how would you respond? What choices might you make?
I would go talk to my teacher and find out what I don't understand.
Okay.
I'm not nervous about doing that as much.
Okay, that's good. That's very good.
He was really nice, so.
Okay. And how did you feel about your teacher before you went in?
I was scared of him.
Mm-hmm. And could you explain that?
He teaches, he's like up at the board, he's very strict.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was really nervous.
Okay, so your thought about him was that he's a very strict teacher. Is that correct? Did he exhibit any behaviors in the class that made you feel that way?
Yeah, he has a strong personality.
Okay. But when you went and met with him again, tell me again how you felt about after you met with him.
I felt better because he wasn't that way one-on-one, but he was that way with the whole class. Probably because people are talking and whatever, and he has to keep them quiet, you know. So yeah, it was good.
Okay. And after you met with him, did any of his behaviors in the classroom change?
No.
Okay, so he stayed the same the whole time. Okay. And do you think that there's your perception of him? Do you think that there's some connection between your reluctance to go and talk to him and your perception of him? Okay. And tell me how you feel about that now.
I feel like I can go talk to him.
Okay.
Because I did talk to him one-on-one, and that was comfortable, and I didn't think it would be.
Okay, all right. And that's great. I'm really glad that you advocated for yourself and you went in and talked to him and got help with math. That's a great thing. And do you think that that's something that you would consider to continue to do with him? Okay. And how do you think you might go about doing that to make sure that that happens?
I think thinking about the last time that I went to visit him and how that made it easier to talk to him might help.
Okay.
Go back again. The next time I'll have a different thought.
Okay.
Then he's scary, I'll think, I did this before and it was fine, and it felt better afterwards.
And how's that going to do to your anxiety level, your confusion level we talked about before?
It's gonna lower it. It already did.
Okay.
But because I was like at a 10.
Oh, well, so that's good. It's going down. That's really awesome. Yeah. So tell me, and I think that's great that you have that plan in place. Tell me, what do you think is going to happen with your grade if you keep going in to see your teacher?
Well, I hope that I get the information that I need, and then I will get a better grade because I'll know what I'm doing, and I can take a test and not fail.
That's a good thing, isn't it? Yeah. And then tell me, you mentioned a little bit when we first started talking about your dad. Tell me a little more about what's going on with your dad.
He gets really angry, not only about my grade, but he gets angry about a lot of things in the house, so I just try to stay away from him.
Okay. And let's just focus on math, because we see you brought math up, and that was a point of concern for you.
Well, that's because he's yelling at me about math right now.
Okay, well, sometimes dads do that. Yeah, we may not agree with it. How do you think your dad's going to feel if you start getting a better grade in math?
Probably he won't yell at me about it.
Yeah. So Is there a connection then between your choice to go and see your math teacher and maybe your dad yelling or not yelling at you?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think you might be able to come up with maybe some homework for next week?
Well, I have a math test coming up.
Okay, so you have a math test.
Yeah, so I could go, to the math lab and see if they could help me. Cause that's what my teacher suggested as I go to the math lab.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really nervous about going to the math lab because that's someone else I have to talk about that I don't understand algebra.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I could do that.
Okay, so the math lab is an option.
Yeah.
Well, tell me another option you could do.
I could go talk to my teacher again.
Mm-hmm. And you felt comfortable talking to your teacher, right?
Yeah.
So if you had to choose between the two, which one do you think would be a better option for you?
Well, since I already talked to my teacher, that would be a better option, but
Mm-hmm.
he thought that maybe going to the math lab would be good, so.
Mhm.
Maybe in the future I could do the math lab, but for right now, I'll just go talk to my teacher.
I like that thinking. I think that's a great decision. And I think just based on what you said earlier, talking to the teacher is gonna be a much better choice for you. So I support that wholeheartedly. And then, and so, yeah, and I think that, again, I think you've really made some good progress in terms of how you feel about math. I think you've really pushed yourself in terms of being willing to go and talk to your teacher, even though you were concerned about, you know, how he might feel about you or think about you. And I think you've also recognized that if you keep working on math, that your dad might be more happy, or at least not as likely to yell at you about math, which I think is great.
Yeah, I do too.
And do you feel good about your homework for next week?
Yes,
Okay. And do you feel confident about it?
yes.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. So I think, and my hope is that you're gonna find that as you start learning more of the math and feeling more confident about it, that maybe then your next idea would be down the road, the idea of feeling comfortable going to the math lab rather than just having to see your teacher. So I'm really pleased with what you've been able to accomplish, and I'm really looking to hear how the math test goes. All right?
Okay,
So I'll see you next week.
okay.
All right,
Thank
perfect.
you.
Yeah. No idea how long that was.